We should probably get underway because we have a wonderful cast here this evening, and I know I can feel the excitement in the room, and because it's been many years since we've had Greater Worcester Opera here in the Jacob Edwards Library, and I'm really glad that we can welcome them back again for a new program, the ABCs of Opera, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of information and a lot of wonderful singing that you're going to impart this evening, and that we're all going to be smarter and wiser as a result of the program. So I'd like to thank the Friends of the Jacob Edwards Library for sponsoring this program and for just facilitating all the programs that we have here at the library. And I'm delighted that you could all come this evening and that the weather wasn't so bad. Charged and excluded with their thunder and lightning, but everywhere else was easy enough to come. And I'm glad you all made it, and I hope we have a wonderful performance ahead of us, and I won't delay things anymore. Elaine Crane is here and will do the comparing for the evening. Thank you very much and welcome. Thank you.
Disappointment now that I'm on stage. As the conductor, usually I'm not accustomed to facing this way. So forgive me if I'm a little bit off of my game, because I'm usually like this, and this is the only view that anybody ever sees of me. So if you don't mind, I'm going to be sort of going in and out here because our notes are on this thing, and I'm going to have to stand here and speak sometimes while I remember what it is I want to say. What were your impressions of that? Is this like the first time anybody has heard opera? Who here has never been to an opera before? Anybody? Yeah, no, it's okay. Like, fine. Yeah, another. Good. Can I ask why? I'm just curious. It's actually important for us to know. No opportunity?
Yeah.
No interest?
No, I would not.
Same? Busy. Interesting. Okay. You know, a lot of people, when I ask that question, they say that typically one of the reasons they don't go is because they simply don't understand it. It's like, it's sort of like if you go to a fancy restaurant and somebody, you know, the waiter delivers this wine list that's, you know, the size of War and Peace on your table, and you've got somebody eating pork and somebody eating beef and somebody eating pizza and somebody with chicken and somebody, and you go, what am I supposed to buy? I don't know the rules of this. Do I need Chardonnay? Do I need Pinot Noir? I don't know what to do, and so people get very intimidated because they don't know the rules. And with opera, typically people don't know the rules. They don't know, like, do I clap in between numbers? I know when I went to the symphony last night, somebody clapped between the second and third movement, and everybody looked at them and was like, but in opera, okay, so like you go to the opera and then somebody sings an aria and everybody goes, and you're going, it's okay, it's okay. And they sing in funny languages, like they switched language this time to help people understand, but some people, that's a barrier to entry for people because they go, well, it's beautiful and the music is nice, but I have no idea what they're saying. It would really help me if I knew what was going on. So, you know, we find that typically there's like, people don't want to feel uncomfortable. They want to go into the room knowing the rules and knowing what's going on so that they know how to interact with it when they're presented with it. And oftentimes with opera, people just don't know what's going on and how to deal with it, and so they just kind of go, I think I'll stay home and watch Love Boat reruns. Never mind. In theory, this should work. Oh, I love it when that happens. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. I will fix this. Okay. That's perfect. This was supposed to be up while they were singing because that's the scene from that opera, but now we're past that. Let me introduce the people that just sang for you. First of all, Elaine Crane is our executive director and the founder of the Greater Worcester Opera Company. She's a soprano, often a soloist with the company as well as with many, many other companies in the area as well. We have Angela Yaiko, excuse me, it's Italian, say it.
Yaiko.
Yaiko. I tried every single one except mezzo-soprano, who's also, by the way, for those of you who are interested in Gilbert and Sullivan, she's the president of the New England Gilbert and Sullivan Society. Olga Rogach is our accompanist. She's the accompanist for Greater Worcester, as well as a soloist and a teacher and a vocal coach throughout the area. Very popular. Book now. Very busy. And my name is Aldo Fabrizi. I just stand here and talk. Usually I'm this and you see the back of my head. So,
clapping at the right time?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Are we clapping at the right time?
You're yeah, all except that last one. So what is opera? Somebody else want to take this one? No. So opera is, it's basically a way to tell a story. It's really all there is to it. It's another form of storytelling, only we tell stories with music, we tell it with sets, with costumes, with lighting, with a great orchestra, with people who send us lots of money to make these things happen. It's sort of a merging of many, many, many art forms, and they all come together in this beautiful synergistic moment on stage to create what we call opera. But we're going to get to that in a minute. This is really what we're going to be covering tonight. Is opera. We're going to talk a little bit about what the beginning, sort of back to the beginning, a brief history of opera. We're going to talk a little bit about opera in pop culture. We're going to discuss voice types so that you can understand what the heck is a tenor and a baritone and mezzo, etc. the differences between opera and musical theater, which is something that usually is a source of a lot of confusion for people. And I hope after we're done discussing it with you, it's not worse. We'll take you, I hope, for a little voyeuristic trip behind the scenes of an opera company and what kind of things go on back there. And if time permits, we're going to do some folklore, maybe some misconceptions about opera, and how to choose an opera to see in case you're looking for that first venture into this. But it looks like many of you have already done that step, so maybe we don't have to go into that as much. Okay, so what is opera? So I just told you that. Now you can all go home. If you're lucky enough to see an opera in a room like this, then you've really sort of hit the mother lode, because rooms like that are built specifically to maximize the experience of opera. Oftentimes we perform opera in libraries like this, or in school auditoriums, or in other auditoriums, but these rooms were built acoustically, perfectly, and visually, and the sight lines and everything about it is made to maximize the performance of opera. So I encourage everybody to get over to Italy sometime. We have tickets. Come see me after the... Oh, this is also opera, but we're going to get to that. Even though opera goes back, I mean, its history is very, very complicated and old, and it goes back many hundreds of years, really before the Renaissance even. Most people identify Monteverdi's Orfeo as the first thing that we call opera, which was written in the very, very late 1500s, I think 1597. Like many things, it really has its roots in Florence, Italy. There's a group called the Camerata Fiorentina, which was a group around 1600, formed around 1600, who, as a member, had Vincenzo Galilei as a member, who was the father of Galileo Galilei. Their purpose was to take the old Greek plays and turn them into more than just a play, to merge them with dance, to merge them with music, and to make the music part of it the center of the opera, so that the music would not only be sort of, like in pre-1600 you had plays, you had dance, you had some music, songs, you had madrigals, you had all sorts of different things going on. But really around 1600, and with the Camerata Fiorentina, they decided that they really thought it would be beneficial to merge all of those into one form, so that you would get sort of the best of all worlds. And in the process of doing that, they also started to push the idea that music should mimic, not just support the voice, but mimic the inflection of the voice. So that as you speak, you have a certain inflection. You don't speak like a robot. You don't speak like a robot. You speak like a robot. And so the music, your vocal line has a shape like this, and so when you write music underneath it, it should do the same. It should support what the voice's natural rhythm and inflection ought to do. And good composers, like Mozart, who had an incredible ability to do this, even in languages that were not his native one, like Italian. Really, really, well, if you come to our performances of Don Giovanni next year, or actually Figaro we're going to be doing in January, but more on that later. In Italian, you'll hear some of this. In any case, that's the beginning of opera. It's much more complicated than that. It's much deeper and richer than that, but we only have a few minutes, so this poor guy. I mean...
He kind of asked for it, though. Don Giovanni was just getting back at him.
So this is why conductors are so hated. But let's you know, let's remember that the reason, like this, what am I trying to say here? You know, we laugh at all of these things because they are really kind of funny, but they're poking fun at opera. And we have to have the ability to laugh at ourselves a little bit, but these are incredibly important tools, and they have been for many people, because a lot of people really did see opera for the very first time through either these cartoons or, you know, the Lone Ranger had William Tell Overture Rossini, and, you know, Apocalypse Now, I think, uses something from The Ride of the Valkyrie, and there are all sorts of things in pop culture, there are a million of them, where we get exposed to it, and a lot of people don't even know what they're listening to, they don't even know what they're watching, they just kind of get that melody in their head. And then, 20 years later, they happen to go to a performance of something, and they go, oh, I know what that is, I remember that, that's, oh, I didn't know that came from here. Exactly. This poor guy, poor tenor. So what is a tenor anyway? We have, you know, we're all built differently. Everybody has a different body type. Certainly marathon runners don't look the same as sprinters. They're both runners. Like opera, you know, opera singers are all opera singers. They all do the same thing, but they all have different purposes, and they all have different roles because of, can you see, I'm sorry if I'm standing in front of you, because of sort of the way that they're built, right? Nose tackle, wide receiver, they're both football players, but they have very different functions in this game. Skaters, completely different animals, right? So with voice types, there are sopranos, there's altos, tenors, mezzo-sopranos, basses, baritones, castrati, you know, etc. And they all serve different functions, and you know, they start with the very, very lowest ones, and they work their way up to the highest ones. And I think to talk a little bit further about this, I'm going to bring in an expert, and Elaine Crane will take.
My turn. All right, I'm going to go back here so I can manipulate technology. All right, so in the movies, we have typecasting, right? Like Brad Pitt, he's not usually typecast as the dad. He's typecast as the hunky guy, right? And so Arnold Schwarzenegger is not the sensitive, dramatic guy. He's the guy with the guns. So we have types, and in opera we have types, and we're typecast by voice, really more than how we look. So we're going to talk about voice types. Like sopranos aren't usually the mother or the aunt. They're usually the love interest, just because they have a high voice. It really doesn't even matter what they look like as much. And tenors are the love interest, or the villain sometimes, because of how they sound. So we're cast in opera by type and how we sound. And you know, for instance, like Hansel and Gretel. Okay, Gretel is a little girl, but there's a 60-piece orchestra that Gretel would have to sing over. There's no little girl in the world that could actually sing that. So you have 50-year-old women singing Gretel because they've trained for it and they can heft over that. So it's not about who you are, it's about how you sound. We've got the women first. So we have sopranos, who are the highest sitting voices. Now we've got a couple of light bulb jokes, because we like jokes. So Angela's going to start us off.
All right. How many sopranos does it take to screw in a light bulb?
How many?
4. 1 to do the work and 3 to pull the chair out from under her.
Welcome to Sopranos. Now I'm a soprano. Don't pull the chair out from under me. I'm going to sing a soprano aria. Now, I'm the kind of soprano that I sing the maids a lot. So this is going to be one of my maid songs, my famous maid songs. This is Mozart. He liked to make sopranos maids. And you will understand the words because this is from a production of Così fan tutte that we did, and we did it in English. Greater Worcester Opera does operas in English so that you can understand them. So I will sing her aria. Right before this aria, there are two broken-hearted women because their boyfriends have left and they want to be faithful, but then these new boys have come into town and they're conflicted, and the maid, who is the only person in the opera with tells them how it is. All right. In gentlemen and in soldiers, for faithfulness you look. A dog is much more faithful than a man. Are there lovers who will keep their word to you? Do you think they'll be true? You will find them in any work of fiction, but those kinds of men only live in books. But in reality, void of devotion, leaves ever fluttering breezes in motion, waver no more than the heart of a man. Tears from a lying heart, falsest of glances, intimate serenades, crafty embraces from the beginning are part of their plan. From the beginning are part of their plan. They think that women are only for pleasure, men are amused with us at their own leisure. Then they despise us, deny us their love, annoy us in begging a tyrant for mercy. There will be none. They're all the same. Will you be trampled on, ladies, and bear it? Or be your motto and up and declare it? Do unto others as they do to you. Love them all selfishly, then let them go. Love them all selfishly, then let them go. La 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 la. Do unto others as they do to you. Love them all selfishly, then let them go. La 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 la. Will you be trampled on, ladies, and bear it? Or be your motto, then up and declare it? Do unto others as they do to you. So there's a maid song. Soprano, highest voice. Now the mezzo-soprano is a woman with a lower sitting voice, kind of more that chocolatey, creamy, lower, lovely, luscious sound, like Angela.
Just like mine.
No, I get to tell a joke. How many mezzos does it take to screw in a light bulb? None. They can't get up that high. That's true. Angela's going to sing a piece and she's going to tell us what it's all about.
So this is also another piece about how men are all the same.
I'll be leaving now.
This aria is Cruel de Sorte, Cruel Fate, from L'Italiana in Algieri, which is the Italian girl in Algiers. And the character, Isabella, is a sassy, smart Italian girl whose boyfriend Lindoro has been captured by the Bay of Algiers. And so she goes to get him, and she gets shipwrecked on the shores of Algiers, and she is surrounded by pirates. So she decides to sing about it. That's what you do. And in this aria, she sings about cruel fate. Here I am on this beach surrounded by pirates, because I've come for my love Lindoro, and who is going to help me? Who will help me? Who will give me guidance? And then she's like, so nobody. And I I will help myself. I'm a practical Italian girl and I can do it, and all men are the same, and they will succumb to a languid glance and a smile from a girl, and it'll be fine. Cruda sorte, amor tirano, questo è il premio di mia fe. Non d'error, terror, ne affanno, pari a quel ch'io provo in me. Per te solo, o mio lindoro, io mi trovo in tal periglio, da chi spero, oddio consiglio, chi conforto mi darà, da chi spero, oddio consiglio, chi conforto mi darà, da chi spero, oddio consiglio, chi conforto mi darà. Qua ci vuol disinvoltura, non più smanie né paura, di coraggio a tempo adesso, or chi sono si vedrà, or chi sono si vedrà. Già so per pratica qual sia l'effetto d'un sguardo languido, d'un sospiretto. Sodoma gli uomini come si fa? Sì. Sodoma gli uomini come si fa? Sì, Sodoma gli uomini come si fa? Sian dolci o rudi, sian flemma o fuoco, son tutti simili a presso poco. Sian flemma o fuoco, son tutti simili a presso poco. Tutti la chiedono, tutti la bramano, tutti la chiedono, tutti la bramano. Da vaga femmina felicità, sì. Da vaga femmina felicità, sì. Da vaga femmina felicità. Tutti la bramano, tutti la chiedono, da vaga femmina felicità. Tutti la bramano, tutti la chiedono, da vaga femmina felicità. Da vaga femmina felicità, da vaga femmina felicità, felicità. Now you've heard the difference between a mezzo and a soprano. One of us likes to kind of hang out high, and one of us likes to kind of hang down low. But Rossini, who wrote that aria, his wife was a mezzo-soprano. So he wrote all kinds of great stuff for his mezzo-soprano wife, like
Yeah,
The
he
Barber of
liked that.
Seville.
Right, yeah, good stuff. All right, now let's go to the guys. We've got countertenors, like the Bee Gees. You know how they sang way up? Stand alive, stand Yeah. Well, it's a man who kind of not over. He cultivates that top falsetto part of his voice, and he sings up. And he sings the roles that castrati used to sing. Now, if you know anything about Latin roots, you can probably understand what a castrati was. And those, we don't have them anymore, but they used to have a procedure, and they would sing high for all their lives, and they were like rock stars, and everybody loved them. But now we have countertenors who sort of cultivate that high part of their voice. And then we have tenors, and tenors are the highest sort of normal voices for men, and they play lovers and heroes, and every once in a while they play a villain if they kind of like that. Angela.
How many tenors does it take to screw in a light bulb?
How many?
1. They hold the bulb and the world revolves around them. It's true.
That's a tenor. They can come late and stay, and they're forgiven everything. A baritone is kind of in the medium range, and a lot of comic roles like Figaro, they're baritone roles. And they often play the best friend of the tenor. And then we've got the bass, the very low, the priests, the fathers, the low stuff. And then Russian basses sing even lower than everybody else. We don't know how to do that. Now my turn. How many basses does it take to screw in a light bulb?
How many?
None, because real men aren't afraid of the dark. Then we've got buffo roles, which are sort of comic roles. They can be any voice, but they're kind of the silly people, and they sing a little bit funnier than we do. Okay, so that's a quickie little thing through voice types. Now, we've got different kinds of singing. I'm sure I don't have to tell you about pop singing. Pop singing is just sort of, you turn on your radio and you hear it. It's very easy to sing along with. It's got a tiny little range, and you sing right here speaking kind of like this, pop singing. Doesn't take much training. I don't want to disparage pop singers, but it's sort of, the less educated singing, maybe? Then there's musical theater singing. Do we have musical theater fans? I'm a huge musical theater fan. Musical theater fan is sort of that next, they use a combination of lower sort of popish singing, and then they'll go up for high notes every once in a while. It's a little more theatrical than pop singing, and a little more open. And then opera is kind of that big open sound. Now, I'm just going to do a tiny little demonstration so you can hear the difference a little bit. So in musical theater, we would sing, "This is how I sing in musical theater, and this is how I sing in opera." And you can kind of hear that there's more openness. They were the same notes. So it's just kind of, it's got to do with openness, and you're using your resonators that are in your whole body. And then there's crossover singing, which there are a lot of people doing now. I'm a crossover singer, and Angela, we do a lot of musical theater, like the lyrical, like the Rodgers and Hammerstein and the old stuff, as well as opera. It can be very beautiful that way. So we're going to give you a couple demonstrations. I'm going to sing one of my favorite songs in the world, "Good Night, My Someone" from The Music Man. So this is an operatic voice, kind of toning down and singing something from musical theater. Good night, my someone. Good night, my love. Sleep tight, my someone. Sleep tight, my love. Our star is shining, its brightest light. For good night, my love. For good night. Sweet dreams be yours, dear, if dreams, sweet dreams to carry you close to me. I wish they may, and I wish they might. Now good night, my someone. know who you are. Sweet dreams be yours, dear, if dreams there be. Sweet dreams to carry you close to me. I wish they may, and I wish they might. Now good night, my someone. Good night. Good night. Good night. Now Angela will sing something completely different.
The average unmarried female, basically insecure, due to some long frustration, may react with psychosomatic symptoms, difficult to endure, affecting the upper respiratory tract. In other words, just some waiting around for that plain little band of gold. A poison can develop a cold. You can spray her wherever you figure the streptococci lurk. You can give her a shot for whatever she's got, but it just won't work. If she's tired of getting the fisheye from the hotel clerk, a poison can develop a cold. It says here, the female remaining single, just in the legal sense, shows a neurotic tendency. See note, chronic organic syndromes, toxic and hypertense, affecting the eyes, the ears, the nose, the throat. Yep. In other words, just some worrying whether the wedding is on or off. A poison can develop a cough. You can feed her all day with the vitamin A and the promo fizz, but the medicine never gets anywhere near where the trouble is. If she's getting a kind of a name for herself and the name ain't his, a poison can develop a cough. And furthermore, just some stalling the wedding trip. A poison can develop blood grip. When they get on the train for Niagara and she can hear church bells chime, the compartment is air conditioned and the mood sublime. Then they get up at Saratoga for the 14th time. A poison can develop la grippe, la post-nasal drip, with the wheezes and the sneezes and the sinus that's really a bip. For a lack of community property and a feeling she's getting too old, a poison can develop a bad cold. Achoo!
Great. Okay, so now in musical theater they use microphones, right? We put them right there so you can't see them. In opera, we always say our microphones are right here. We train really hard to be able to sing from here, using our body and without amplification. So I have a very quick exercise for everybody. Okay, is this on here? No. Does everybody know America the Beautiful? Oh, beautiful for spacious skies. Okay, so we're gonna say the first verse, take a big deep breath, and then just speak it as quickly as you can. Ready? Do it with me. Ready? So we're gonna say, "Are beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain." Ready? Take a deep breath. Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesty above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Okay, we can do that in one breath, right? Okay, now try singing it. Olga's gonna accompany. Now, take a deep breath and sing as long as you can in one breath, and then stop. All right? We're gonna see how long we go. Sing loudly. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains. You're breathing. You can't breathe. One breath. We don't go very far, do we? We did the whole thing in one breath when we were speaking, but when you start to sing, it costs a lot of breath and you don't do. So there's a lot of breath training that goes into opera and not having to use amplification. It's really like, 70% of what we do is breathing. Okay, that's just a quickie. Okay, so very, very quickly. Opera, musical theater. Opera, no amplification. Theater, amplification. Singing requirements. In opera, there's that more open sound like I showed you, and it's more speech-like in theater. They kind of sing right in the middle like we talk. The vocal range, in opera is very big, and in musical theater it's much less. We don't do those extreme things. Language. Opera is often not in English, and musical theater is always in English. Dance. In opera, the singers do not dance. In musical theater, they do all their own dancing. But in both genres, musical theater and opera, there's a huge variety. I mean, the musical Rent is going to sound nothing like South Pacific, right? Very big, and in opera, the same thing. There's Mozart, there's Wagner, there's all kinds of stuff.
She looks at me.
Also dialogue. There are a few exceptions like Carmen and the Magic Flute, but mostly we sing our dialogue in opera because it's easier to understand and it goes farther when you sing it. Just like the priests that intone mass, like kind of their voices go out. But in musical theater, you speak and you need to be amplified. So we're going to skip that little thing. Okay, so behind the scenes, covering. Covering is just the opera word for understudy. Everybody needs an understudy because if you get sick, you have no instrument. It's like you've got nothing. So everybody needs their understudy. And then we've got, auditions. They're so complicated. Headshots, resumes, bios, books, and all kinds of stuff like that. And now I'm gonna, I pass to you.
Okay,
Director.
please do. Guilty as charged as a director. So we sit in on, obviously, on the auditions. I mean, we're past the auditions already. I don't want to make you relive those because you hate them. I hate them probably more than she does. They're horrible.
They're terrible.
Horrible things to live through. Making decisions about people, some of whom are extraordinarily talented, and then having to pick one over another one is really a miserable thing to have to do. But it's one of the jobs of a director, and behind the scenes we have directors, we have designers, we have managers. In fact, I have of all sorts managers. I have a slide here. Here it is. Okay, this is the tip of the iceberg. That's what happens on stage. We have a cast, chorus, and dancers maybe. Behind the scenes, music director, stage director, choreographer, dramaturg, set designer, costume designer, lighting designer, makeup designer, technical director, business manager, blah, 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 blah. And then below the little dotted line here, those are the single roles. These are the roles that require multiple people. Orchestra, set builders, carpenters, painters, electricians, costumers, spotlight operators, dressers, makeup artists, etc., etc. Basically, it means what you see on stage for those 2.5 hours is nothing. Everything else that happened is behind the scenes, and you don't even know what went into it. Those 2.5 hours took probably 80 to 100 hours worth of rehearsal. Typical. And it usually requires at least that many people. I'm probably missing more. I just ran out of paper. when you go to an opera and you pay your whatever, 25, 30, 35, 100 even dollars for a ticket, you know, people go kind of crazy. They go, why is this so expensive? I mean, people don't even think twice about paying that much to go to a Red Sox game or a Patriots game, right? But to go to an opera, I mean, and it takes armies of people to make this stuff happen. And when you go to like the Met, and you can actually get away with paying $25, not that I want to talk about other opera companies, but I'm just saying, you just like, it's incredible. You're getting the best in the world at what they do in every single one of these jobs. Every one of them is the best, or among the best in the world. And you know, you're paying $25 to get in at the last minute to go see it. It's incredible. It's a bargain. So we have similar bargains at the Greater Worcester Opera, and we have similar talent, by the way. So, so we encourage you. But I just want you to understand, like, there's a whole lot that goes on behind. And as one of the directors, production meetings with these people. You see this hairline? Okay. That explains, I don't have to say anything else about it. When you have to resolve all of the issues that you have to resolve with these people, it gets a little bit crazy. I think I'm back to you.
Yeah, we're gonna skip ahead.
Okay,
so
we're gonna skip ahead.
you can talk about rehearsals, but first because you're a conductor, I get a joke about you. All right, so how many conductors does it take to screw in a light bulb? Nobody knows because no one ever watches them. You're welcome.
He smiles graciously. I would never know because I'm never facing anybody anymore.
I watch you, Aldo. I watch them.
Thank you. And you're a better person for it. Do you want to talk about translations, super titles, what goes into learning an opera, training? Training is important.
Training is important. Okay, I'll do a quickie. So to sing an opera, you don't just get up and sing an opera, right? So for instance, I'm doing a role coming up. So I took Italian in school. I learned the arias when I was in school 100 years ago and coached them way before I knew I could sing them because you have to learn them and put them in your body years before. I coached the music with vocal coaches, with a pianistic coach, with a dialect coach. Then you understudy a role and you are somebody's understudy so that you can learn it. And then when you get the role, you work with the music with an accompanist. You go and you audition, and then you beat out 200 other sopranos because that's how many there are, a lot of them. And then when you finally get the role, you work with the music director, you work with the stage director, and you put it all together, and then you not only learn it, but you memorize it, and then you memorize it with all the staging. And all of that training is what goes into doing one little role. So there's a real bird's eye view.
There you go. Yeah, you don't just show up at the audition and go, oh, I can sing.
I can sing opera.
Doesn't work that way. Rehearsals. This is my favorite part of the whole process. It's fabulous. It's where all the fun happens and where the rubber really meets the road. They're complicated, they're crazy, they're stressful, they're beautiful, they're wonderful. You see some great things happen at rehearsals. But what we do when we get to a certain level is that you don't sit at rehearsals anymore and just learn notes. People show up at these rehearsals and they already have their roles learned. I'm not sitting there and you're not sitting there banging out notes for people and teaching them how to sing their music. Not anymore. What we do is, I go back to that list of crew people, costumers, lighting people, stage directors, etc. And we, I won't say argue, we work together to make all of our various views work. For example, let's say you have an aria that we had sort of timed in our heads, maybe Elaine or Angela were going to sing, and they were going to start at the top of a set of stairs, and by measure 17, they were supposed to be on the ground. Because it's staged that way. Something happens on the ground and they have to be there. So they start, we're conducting, we're going, we get to measure 17, and they're only like 5 steps down. Why? Why? Maybe the costume, maybe they're wearing a, what do you call the,
Hoop skirt.
A hoop skirt, thank you, a hoop skirt, can't see their feet. So they're afraid to walk down the stairs at the right speed. Didn't think of that. Oh, okay, so like, do we change your costume? Get together with a production meeting, do we have to change the costume? Do we change the lighting so that maybe she can see the stairs a little bit better and like feel a little more confident walking down? Do we have to change the set? Do we have to turn it into a ramp? Like, what do we have to resolve this problem. So, and of course, what happens is many times everybody says, well, just play the music slower. That's the easy, cheap response. It doesn't cost any money to play it any slower, right? Now, if I were Toscanini, and since I have a little bit of him in my blood, being Italian, I would say Puccini or Verdi or Mozart wrote this music to go at this speed. It's your problem, not my problem. You deal with it. You're an imbecile for not thinking about what you had to dress that person in, or what the set was supposed to look like, or anything like that. So, but I don't typically run things like that. There was one other thing I wanted to say about this. I have it in my notes somewhere. Well, yes. Well, this is actually speaking of Toscanini. So, you know, these rehearsals sometimes take a long time. As I said, it's 75, 80, 100 hours worth of rehearsals to get what you need done. There are money issues involved with that. If you have to go to 110 hours, the producers start looking at you and they start going, this is going to cost us a fortune. This is like, and this is a quote from Toscanini, who said at one point, when confronted by producers this way, said, "It's my job to make this music sound great, and I'm doing what I have to do that. It's your job to figure out how to pay for it. You deal with it." So, and if I need 110 hours of rehearsals, then I'm doing my job. That's all there is to it. Did you hear that back there?
I heard it.
Okay.
Money doesn't grow on trees,
What does a conductor do?
That's the next slide.
Hits the next slide? Okay. Here we go. I believe Lou Lee was the last one to use a conducting baton like that, and then he died actually by hitting himself in the foot with it, and he got gangrene and he killed himself. He's actually the first conductor, it's true. Actually a true story. Yeah, he died from gangrene by stabbing himself with it. So, forgive me for going back and forth.
It ain't over till the fat lady sings. We're going to talk about some misconceptions in folklore.
Yes.
That one.
Okay, yeah. So it ain't over till the fat lady sings, is what they say, and that is a Wagnerism, in a way. The fat lady is, the Valkyrie Brunhilde, who is traditionally presented as a very buxom lady, with a horn, thank you, exactly, a horned helmet, the spear and the shield, and her aria at the end of the Götterdämmerung, basically the Twilight of the Gods, lasts almost 20 minutes. And the end of it is really the end of the entire ring cycle, and so, the end of the ring cycle is the end of it's the end. It's the end of the world, or at least the world of the Norse gods, right? So, in a very significant way, it really sort of is all over when the fat lady sings, and that's really where that phrase comes from. Or as Yogi Berra once said it even better, it ain't over till it's over.
So, do opera singers have to be large? Well, no.
No, they don't.
That is a misconception, and actually in the age of video now, it's become a huge thing. Like with Met HD, I don't know if you've been to the movies to see the Met, all those cameras right on people, we've become a much more visual society, and to see somebody, a soprano dying of tuberculosis at 400 pounds, kind of people don't buy that anymore, and so we become very visual, and casting directors are directing much more towards the visual, but it's created controversy. A few years ago, Deborah Voigt, who was this amazing singer, there was a role that she was the best in the world at singing. And she was turned down by a European opera company because she was too big. But she's the best singer in the world for it. So she went and she had gastric bypass surgery, and she lost a whole bunch of weight. And so, like, it's a big issue, but it's not necessarily true that you have to be big to be an opera singer. That's the answer to that question. Are opera lovers snobs? That's your question.
Oh, thank you. Well, you know, there are snobs in all, you know, in all parts of life. Just as there are, like, in the wine world, you know, you get the people who, like, you know, write these wine reviews about the smell of dirty sneakers and forest floor and all this other stuff. It's like, you know, drink wine because you love the wine, not because you want to, like, do that. It's the same thing in the opera world. You get these people who, like, really want to intimidate you with all the knowledge that they have and make you feel inferior because you don't know all of that. Forget them. Just go and listen to the music and have fun. Go have a nice dinner afterwards. After, like, so your stomach doesn't feel all grumbly during the show. And then you don't have to get up and excuse yourself. Just wait for it and then have a great time and listen to it and enjoy the opera. And don't worry about the snobs.
Now, another misconception is that opera singers don't act. And this was true for a long time because we call it park and bark. They would just kind of stand, you know, the wonderful Luciano Pavarotti, who was such an amazing singer, he would just plant himself and just sing. And if you have a voice like that, you can get away with it. But most of us don't. And also, it was just kind of, you know, they were always just pointing forward, being loud. And again, our visual society, we've gotten more accustomed to acting and visuals and things like that. And opera singers now need to be actors. And when you've got the Met HD camera right in your face, and everybody in the world can see you, you have to be able to act. So the park and bark days are really over. So now we're going to talk about how to choose an opera to see.
So it's sort of like choosing a movie, right? Like, what are you in the mood for? Do you like drama? Do you like comedy? But, you know, sort of unlike a movie, it's really a good idea to learn about this opera that you're going to see before you go see it. You really should read the plot summary because it will be in a different language or likely be in a different language. And if you don't know what's going on, it does make your enjoyment of the whole thing a little bit harder. So just read the libretto, read a synopsis of the libretto before you go. And
there are romantic operas. You know, if you like When Harry Met Sally or Annie Hall, you might like The Marriage of Figaro or The Elixir of Love. There are heart-rending dramas. If you like Gone with the Wind or Casablanca, you might like La Bohème, Aida, Tosca, Traviata, Carmen. There are horror, shocker kind of shows. If you like The Shining, which I've never seen, or The Exorcist also I've never seen. Electra, Salome, Wozzeck. There are really grisly, nasty operas if you like that kind of thing. There are epic tales. So if you like Braveheart and Lawrence of Arabia, you might like Othello, Boris Godunov, The Ring Cycle. And then there are lighthearted comedies like our favorite, the Gilbert and Sullivan operas and Die Fledermaus. Operetta is kind of light opera. It's more comical and light, but it still requires the same beautiful, wonderful singing. Now our advertisement section.
Yes, continue, please.
2 years ago, we did The Marriage of Figaro, and we did a Downton Abbey version of The Marriage of Figaro. It was so much fun. I got to dress up the footman just like in Downton Abbey. It was really great. And another company out in Northampton has asked us to bring that production out there. So we are going to do The Marriage of Figaro again, our Downton Abbey version, in January out in Northampton at the Academy of Music. Aldo's going to be conducting. I'm going to be singing Susanna and bringing my costumes with me. And then there are going to be a host of wonderful singers, and it's 2 days. It's one weekend at the end of January. So if you're interested, now this production is going to be in Italian. Our production was in English. So it's a different thing. But they'll have super titles so you can read. So here's what you do. You read and you look, and you read and you look, and you read and you look, which is why we like to do things in English, because you just look. Look and listen. Our audiences really love the fact that we sing opera in English. It takes us a long time. We've been working for 3 months on the translation. It takes us a long time to translate it, but then you know exactly what we're singing, just like in my aria before, you knew exactly what I was singing.
Right, the translation you're talking about is for Don Giovanni, which we're
Yes.
doing next.
Is that our next slide? No. Oh, our winter gala.
We're getting there.
Yeah. February 3rd, we're doing like a music from the movies cabaret kind of thing in Worcester. We have tons of fun at our concerts. We've got so many great singers. Angela's going to be singing too. We've got so many great singers, and this one's a fundraiser, so we've got all kinds of stuff to give away and raffles and silent auction, and come and just have fun with us and support our work because we're the only opera company around. So we really love and appreciate support. And then in June, we're going to be doing Don Giovanni. Epic opera, and we're so excited about it. We just cast it because you have to cast way far in advance so you get the really good singers and that they have time to learn. So we've got an amazing cast ready to do that. And we're going to be doing it in Worcester and in Auburn and in Shrewsbury. So that's going to be fantastic, and it's going to be in English. So do we have time for a couple, where'd Margaret go? Is she here?
That's all right. She's not
Oh,
here.
okay.
Go for it.
All right. Well, if you don't mind, we thought we'd end with sort of two very, very famous songs. Just to give you, Angela's going to sing from Carmen, and then I'm going to sing O mio babbino caro, which is like the soprano national anthem, we call it. We just thought we'd leave you with a couple of barn burners.
So in this scene, Carmen, who's a gypsy, she works in a cigarette factory. She's been arrested for getting into a fight. She's a free-spirited kind of person. And she tries to convince Don Jose, who is the policeman, or the what, a dragoon, what is he?
Captain of the guard.
Captain of the guard, who is holding her. She's been tied up, and she's trying to convince him to let her go because they'll go to this tavern that she knows, which is owned by her friend Lila Spastia, and there they will dance together and they will drink manzanilla. He goes for it, by the way.
Prédira par de Séville, chez mon ami la Spastia. J'irai dans cela, c'est gai de boire du manzanilla. J'irai chez mon ami la Spastia. Oui, mais tout cela s'ennuie, et les plaisirs sont de, donc pour me tenir compagnie, j'amènerai mon amoureux. Mon amoureux, il est tout diable, je l'ai mis en la portière, mon pauvre cœur très consolable, mon cœur est libre comme l'air. J'ai des galas à la douzaine, mais ils ne sont pas à mon gré. Voici la fin de la semaine. Qui veut m'aimer, je l'aimerai. Qui veut mon âme, les comprendre. Vous arrivez au bon moment. Je n'ai guère le temps d'attendre, car avec mon nouvel amant, prédira par de Séville, chez mon ami la Spastia, nous danserons la séguette de boire du manzanilla. Tra-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la.
All right, and this last aria is O mio babbino caro, which means my dear daddy. Some people think it's bambino, which is baby, but it's babbino, which is daddy. And so Lauretta is in love with somebody, and he's sort of on the outs with her family, and she wants nothing more than for her father to make a way for her to marry this boy who she loves so much. And like a typical 16-year-old, she says, if I can't marry him, I'm going to throw myself in the river. Yeah. So this is her begging her daddy to help.
Oh, mio babbo.
so if you feel like discussing anything, did you have something to say?
No.
Walked up like you wanted to say something.
I know we're just gonna have dinner and get a great Italian meal somewhere.
Oh, that sounds good. Okay. So please come to our concert and our opera, and we'd love to see you. And if you have any questions, we're here, so come on up and talk to us. Thank you very much. Thank you.